Guilty Gear Exar. Rev 2. Guilty Gear Exar. Rev 2. Guilty Gear Exar. Rev 2.
Let me... Alright, let me pull up the right tab. Sweet, I'm not even late, technically. Let me see. What was that? I usually do 35 minutes. Alright. The good thing is that time-wise, it's kind of chill. I mean, I keep these the same time frame because I don't know like if people just schedule that point. But it's nice when I don't get other VOD reviews because I don't even have to worry about it. Oh, that was really loud. Fuck, that was really loud. Okay, that's probably better. Alright, let me... Oh, that's what I forgot to do. I forgot to set up whiteboard before this. It doesn't matter. I haven't used whiteboard for like, for... What's it called? VOD reviews in a minute, but I keep forgetting to set it up again. I think the scripts I had were not functioning properly anymore. Let's see, what should I be doing? Different one cornered by Slayer. I guess the Penton only takes so far. I will say, like, as I set the tab up so we can watch it, I think that Slayer is, like, fundamentally pretty scary once he has you in the corner. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that you can't really jump on Slayer, even if that is a thing your character normally gets to do. And I think it can make escaping the corner very difficult. But there are definitely things you want to keep in mind. And Axel actually has a pretty okay time in the sense that he's got buttons to reach versus Slayer. Let me start the timer. BDC's out. I will say, as a rule of thumb, I'm trying not to pause too much because I feel like it slows down the actual VOD review process, but I will say, passing advice as a rule of thumb, when you're playing a character, in my opinion, like Axel, you don't really have super crazy buttons to tech with. Definitely not like into people, and so like tech jump H is solid because obviously you don't want to get air thrown, but if you tech backwards, it's pretty hard to air throw that unless somebody is like right underneath you. And if you're really scared of getting air thrown, what you do is just tech backwards, but a little bit later, like just a smidge later than you normally would, so that if they throw too early because they're throwing the timing for the immediate tech. Everyone is usually throwing the timing for immediate tech until you show otherwise. So what it means is like you can usually tech back in faultless defense and you'll be fine. But Axel doesn't really like scrambling on tech buttons much. He doesn't get much. He doesn't get like same degree of reward. I spent 10. This is actually probably closer than you want to be too. We'll talk about the spacing. I think you should hold. This is a little better. Once you start pushing out off of like Sparrowhawk, it's not so bad. But you really have to keep in mind that Slayer can really disappear in like big chunks. Let me get my notepad out too, so I can jot some of the stuff down we're gonna talk about. One of the other things too is it's a safe assumption that Slayer will not stick around for your Okizeme. So learning to fight with him in general, like in these situations, is a lot about understanding, like pressing something that's really active. So for example, like if they do BDC here and you press like 2H, it's kind of hard to get around unless they do BDC like command grab. But that's an execution test for them, so it can be difficult to pull off. Just jotting some stuff down, so we'll go over it in the game after the set. Here, you should be a little bit more passive. Anytime, if somebody's going to air tech versus you here as Axel, you could honestly use Axel's normals as a metric for spacing if you wanted to. But if you can internalize like this distance, don't feel pressured to chase people teching back here. Focus on covering tech forward button always there as Axel, in my opinion. It's because even if they give up the space, it's kind of what you want anyway, right? Let's 2H. Good 2H, check the Oki. Here you probably have to back up, yeah. This is chill. That's a good way to play it. A lot of 2H holding space for sure, and then making good usage of just retreating and throwing out like JS like that is nice versus a character like Slayer. Can kind of slow him down. Minor thing for sure too is if you ever block pile bunker, you can run up and close flash. You should be able to, as most characters. I only mention it because if you ever do instant block pile bunker and they don't have meter, it's nice to try to get the best Punisher character will let you. Because Slayer would have gotten a lot if he hit that, especially as a counter hit. So you always kind of want to make him really think about the risk and not just the reward. That way you don't have to deal with the option all the time. So once you enter this spacing, as I suppose, a really good DP. Really scary, but it was a good awareness on them overextending. Like here, so you actually don't really need to move forward here. When you do this this 5P, right here, you can just do probably like take a step forward if you want in 5P, but dashing forward into 5P can be pretty risky if you're not confident on the trade. I know that Axel 5P trades a lot into combos, but it's kind of character specific. So I would say, like, if you don't know for sure, it's probably better to hang out a little bit further back, in my opinion, on those situations. Okay, I will say, I don't think there's a reason to do this. Even if you're feeling yourself, do not do DP round start. Unless you genuinely think your character gets owned at round start by, like, everything, do not do DP round start. I've seen some characters that have to do DP round start, and Axel in this match was probably not one of them. I could be wrong, I don't know Axel like that, but don't do Benton at round start. Like, Slayer doesn't get the craziest punish, but still. Nice. So I will say, and we'll talk about it more because it's like the thing you actually asked about, is learning to understand the rhythm at which Slayer like is applying his pressure is pretty fundamental. A big thing to learn to internalize is this button. You need to learn to, like, as anybody, it's nice to learn to recognize Slayer's forward heavy, where he swings his leg onto you, because it doesn't have any more gatlings. If you block it crouching spaced out, it's still plus on block, I think. Not like crazy amounts, but I don't know, I think it's like maybe plus 4 or 5 or something like that. But the idea is more, once you block this, Slayer cannot press any more, like, he doesn't have gatlings, but you know what I mean. He doesn't have buttons that really come after this too much. So a lot of the times it's either he presses this button and waits to see what you do. He presses this button and presses it again if he thinks you're gonna jump. Or he'll, more likely than not, he presses that button and he cancels into dandy stuff like that. And those sways are usually where people get caught, because they'll try to press the button or do something and it will miss and he'll slide back in right after. Also, same situation, I was kind of mentioning earlier of, you just assume that Slayer does not want to beat around for your Okizeme. And even though it gets really repetitive and boring, something like meaty 2H is probably pretty good. It'll at least force them to jump out of it and punish the 2H. Which he might be able to do, to be fair, but it just depends. This is a, like, true mix-up type situation. I think Benton here is valid. It's just, like, it's a guess, you know? Slayer's either going to do high or low, or more likely than not backdash to check Benton. This kind of thing, by the way, like when they do backdash into like the button and into like the sway immediately, would lose to you doing like a delayed up back on wake up. But obviously you kind of need to reach that point in conditioning them. Oh, this is an awkward spacing for Axel. Right, so like, yeah, like 2H and just hold the space, right? Meaty 2H gets got by BDC cross up. Meaty 2D hits behind Axel enough to catch it. I think if you did meaty 2H, they can't dash through you. Unless you mean BDC like IAD back in, that's probably what you mean, right? Yeah. There's a lot of ways. We'll talk about them. I'm no Axel expert, but my point is more, usually your conventional Okizeme versus Slayer is not a thing. Like as like most characters, all that stuff. Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me if he could do backdash cancel, air dash forward, and to land on top of Axel because of the duration. That is actually a pretty solid burst point. Right here, when Slayer punches you as he's like finishing the move, as long as you're not too high in the air, this is a pretty stable burst point. If Slayer doesn't have meter. Oh, that's just unlucky. The timing on that was just unlucky more than anything else. It wasn't necessarily a bad 2H. 6P or 6K, yeah. I forget he has 6K. That could have been worse. Yeah, it's a little dicey here. Honestly, none of these situations were particularly clean situations to escape as Axel. You ended up in a lot of ranges where 5K and 2K won't reach, which leaves Axel at a really awkward spot. He doesn't really like that spacing. And you ended up there a lot. I would say that was just rough. A lot of that, I think, if you wanted to like say like, oh, what should I do more, is more of like this. It feels really bad to do this, because nobody wants to go from being in a combo to like getting hit, but that's like why you want to do that instead, basically, right? Is delaying a tech a little bit into faultless defensing right out of the tech is just safe for characters like Axel, Kai, Sin. Some people would rather just return to blocking or a situation that is under control, right? Axel's not a good character in situations where you have to scramble suddenly, because it's hard for him to select buttons the same way as other people would. Right, so like this is a good example too of once this whiffed, it was kind of just unfortunate the way it lined up, but this spacing has come up quite a bit, where you can't really press 5k or 2k comfortably, and 2H has a lot of startup. So it becomes really awkward to press buttons there. A lot of the times my advice would be to most likely like try to escape by either backdashing immediately or like holding up back and then air dashing back. That will eventually become predictable, and you have to like mix it up a little bit by not always running away. But I do generally recommend it because you're not favored to win exchange. Like even if this traded, Slayer wouldn't have cared. Is the big thing. You're not really favored to win exchanges in that spacing. Like this spacing is really dangerous for Axel. Yeah, a little too much Benson. The big thing about about Slayer is as he's doing stuff like this to you, or like he's just lunging at you, a lot of this stuff is naturally minus, and Slayer will oftentimes sway immediately anyway. In other words, like you didn't really need to Benton here because he was minus. Like the forward dash punch is minus. So like if you were going to do something, you could press a button. The tricky part is you really need to calculate whether or not Slayer is willing to sway to bait the button. But you don't need to feel pressure to DP there. He's not an advantage anyway. You'd be better off DPing something like close slash far slash, and then if they're gonna close slash again, you can. Actually, that might be a true block string if it's spaced out. Now I think about it. You'd be better off DPing like after far slash if they're gonna press like 2k or 5k, but even those are weird. Same with this, by the way. A lot of these situations, Slayer is just minus. This button is actually technically so minus that you could punish it here, but 2H has really weird hit stop, and it makes it really hard to punish, even if you are aware of the fact that it has no special cancels, it has no follow-up gatlings. It's like minus 10 or 11 or something like that on block. It's like decently minus. Right, but the idea is like a lot of these Bentons are actually losing you mileage in situations you don't have to feel too pressured to gamble in. Slayer is really stressful because he's a really fast situation character, right? Slayer changed like the tempo at which Slayer plays rounds is really fast, and if you can't keep up with it, he gets a lot of mileage out of it. Nice tech. Here, you're kind of in that awkward spacing again, right? It's really easy to accidentally end up here because that's kind of where Slayer wants to be anyway, but you're kind of in that spacing again where like Axel is a little too close to want to do the things he wants to do. Right there. Again, you can get a better punish than that. Definitely right there, you should have been able to get like close slash. The spacing is still a little uncomfortable. I would probably give up the space sooner as Axel. That might be a punish. I guess not. I wasn't too sure. Cross up, yeah. Yeah, and then this move, it's happened like once or twice. This move is tricky. Tricky in the sense that you just have to wait for it. One, I will say Slayer's not really a character you should be too comfortable throwing on Wake Up. Here, no matter what it looks like with Slayer, he has pretty good ways of baiting throws on Wake Up with stuff like this. That is a mid, technically, by the way. So you don't actually have to ever worry. A lot of people will block, myself included, will block Helter like standing because you just kind of have that impression from him coming down from the air that it's a high, but it's a mid technically. But Helter is one of those follow-ups where, I mean, the best advice I could think to give somebody is like, don't worry about it. It's like if it's in the back of your mind, it's fine. It takes kind of a bit to come out anyway compared to all the other mix-ups you would do. So the other mix-ups are a little bit more important to remember than this. And even if he hits this, if he doesn't counter hit like this, he doesn't usually get a big combo. Not a big fan of the burst, obviously. Mostly because of resources, honestly. it's not even necessarily a health thing. Like, if you had, say, like 75 bar, this wouldn't be the worst burst. Because you would have a lot of resources to leverage, and that would help you out there. But doing it here isn't even just like, a lot of people say like, oh, it's just bad because you have low health, and it's like, this is fine. If you are not so low health that a special move will chip you out to death, it's fine to burst in some spots. It's really more about if you have a thing that will like help you win the round. Because no matter how you look at it here, Axel has to get probably 2 hits. You would need a really, really, really good hit to maybe kill Slayer on 1 hit. So you need 2 openings for sure. And earning an opening ever in this game is kind of tricky for a lot of the characters, even the better ones. That if you don't have some meter to help you make the opening like easier, it's an awkward spot. Like, resetting to neutral in this matchup is great and it pays off, but you definitely want to be a little mindful of that kind of thing. It's really easy to access, because Slayer did only need 1 touch to kill you. Right? DP is fine there. DP is okay. This is the spot I was saying earlier, but pretty much, where right after the far slash, he is actually quite plus. And Benton will help you check quite a few things. It'll probably get Slayer to stop pressing things as much after far slash is my guess. Which will just help you get the space needed to run away. Something important to remember, by the way, and I'll mention it in passing, is once people start getting hit by DPs like this, don't press a button instead, is like a big thing I would say as an Axel player here. In other words, or like not myself, I'm saying like for Axel players, is what Axel really wants is to just be farther away from you, right? The DP is just a good way of scaring people into waiting in case you might DP for Axel to run away a little bit safer, right? But Axel is naturally pretty minus off everything that he tends to do, except like 6H and the cross up if they don't IB it, I guess. But my point is more, even if you had pressed the button here because you thought, let's say, like, oh, they're gonna be scared of DP, it wouldn't be that good. You use those DPs to reset space. Don't ever press buttons instead of the DP there. Nice. Seems like they have trouble with Sparrowhawk. So right here, they're probably going to BUC. Yeah. This is good spacing. Here you can air dash back. TP again. 6B maybe? No. Yeah, I would say honestly there weren't too many cornered situations from what I could tell, and like that particular set. There was like 1 or 2 interactions that seemed like they came up where Slayer was positioned, like where he had you cornered, but you honestly didn't get caught in the vortex. The next 2 are more corny. Oh, this is Winter Silence, my bad. I like immediately tabbed out. Yeah. The best of 3. I thought that was 2 games. I was just miscounting. 82B. There's again. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the situation is definitely just awkward for this character. Wait, I wasn't clicked in YouTube. Where the thing is the meaty 2D seems okay here. Like, honestly, this didn't... How did this happen? Oh, it was they BDC'd and then they just got caught trying to follow up. That's what it was. Or they backdashed and they tried to follow up. Oh, bunker. Here, just wait. Here, I think you should chill more because Sparrowhawk has already done its job. Like, Sparrowhawk already makes the player feel like, I can't wait around forever, right? So, like, once you get here, I think you do 1 Sparrowhawk and you can just chill. Big hit. It should be a sweep. Oh, never mind. They did that route instead. I think that's a safe jump, right? Yeah, worth noting, by the way, I'm not sure if this was Blitz or DP, but you really want to keep a check on safe jumps on the opposing character. Because if this was a DP, you got smoked. That was a safe jump. Let's confirm. DP maybe? Yeah. Yeah, Blitz is tough there. Yeah. I will say a thing to consider a little bit more is it's really easy when you have a DP and you're cornered or pressured versus Slayer to tell yourself like, I'm gonna DP or I'm gonna do like whatever. If you're gonna not DP, the blitz is okay. I'm not the biggest fan of blitzing Slayer personally unless you think it's a cross up. But what I was gonna say is you should try backdashing a little bit more. Even if Slayer had been correct and you were incorrect, like let's say you backdashed and he did like the overhead and he timed it to catch it, you would be fine. The only thing Slayer kills you with, if you backdash in the corner, is his 6p, which is a little bit annoying to do if you know they have a DP, so you actually might get hit trying to just do meaty 6p. Right. But I haven't really seen it that much, but backdash is pretty alright into Slayer's Okazeme on Wake Up. Like, in general, it's pretty alright until they start trying to bait it out. And it will make the DPs feel a little bit more, not rewarding, but feel like they're actually leading the Slayer to want to do other things or wait for other things. Again, he's minus here, but button selection is important. I don't really know if 5k is fast enough because he's minus on hit here, so Slayer shouldn't win this situation if you press the right button. You don't even need a DP. Like, he's just minus on hit. He's minus 1. But I don't know, Slayer. I honestly don't know if I think 6k should, or not 6k, 5k should trade, I think. But I need to double check. But even the trade would be pretty alright there. Boom, boom. Actually, let me look at this again because I feel like the same thing happened again, right? Yeah. Like, so these situations, this is like the second or third time this happened. This move is naturally minus, right? So this DP is kind of fishing in a way that it like is probably not going to work is the idea. Like, most Slayers aren't actually pressing a button there. So that DP is almost never going to work the way you are expecting it to. Yeah. And then here it's like a weighted out angle, as in that's good combo, yeah. You when you're pressured against Slayer in the corner, if it's not you immediately waking up, you can kind of down back Slayer until he starts doing the until he starts doing the overhead more, right? Slayer doesn't have, he has 6k, I guess, but he's got to be right on top of you. So, I didn't really see the round start. No. I was wondering, like, how did 6H hit backwards? That makes sense. Yeah. Like I said, you know, I don't think you have to feel pressure to DP here. I think you can press probably 6p maybe, even low key. We'll check. But you might be able to just press a regular button here. DP is fine, but it's nice to avoid having to use DP if you can as Axel. This is just what happens if he waits for DP, right? That's like why you have to be careful. But that's not a bad DP spot necessarily. Again, Slayer's kind of hard to throw on Wake Up. I wouldn't really consider this an option too frequently unless the Slayer is really overextending. Because of stuff like this, where the throw timing wasn't even necessarily bad, it was just in the middle of his dash when he like was not throwable, like when he crossed you up there. Like, he wasn't in range of your throw as you did it, which is like why it can be annoying. Nice confirm. This should kill. Yeah, what button interaction was that? Oh, it's late, that's why. That's actually kind of nuts that 5k dodged for Axel there. Delayed Mappa. 6p? That's 6p. Yeah, again, it's like, I'll keep focusing on it because this is actually the situation that's happened the most, is Mappa hitting or being blocked into DP into getting punished for DP. That's happened pretty much the entire time, even since the beginning of the set. Oh, they missed the confirm. Here, it's just about mashing out. That was a good retaliation. This is kind of like how you fight Slayer when he gives up space, in my opinion, as Axel. Like, you kind of just start fighting out of the corner if he gives you the space. Alright. Yeah, I know it's poverty, Johnny 5K. I just wasn't expecting it because he's plus on It's Late. I didn't expect the hurt box to contract so fast. Is kind of what threw me off, right? But I guess it makes sense. It's a fast button. Safe jump, yeah. Like I said, just be careful of that. I always mention it because a lot of people like they have DPs. It was good. It was a good job faultlessing here. You don't want to meaninglessly bend in on safe jumps. Here, it's a safe jump, right? So again, this situation is one of those where like you probably should just block here. Like if you wanted to contest, you could do a backdash on the safe jump and try to throw it afterwards. But there is something to be said about just slowing down and not feeling like you have to RPS on every exchange of stuff. That's just a rough burst point. So here, you have to like steal your heart. And really, like, this is, I think this JS is fine, but once you're this distance, you have to be a little careful because you're boxed in by your opponent, and so whatever you do will be a commitment. It doesn't mean don't do stuff, but it means like be careful here because whatever you do is a commitment, right? This isn't necessarily a bad spacing. Benton is like at it, or not Benton, Renson's like right at its tip, which is nice. But whatever you do, damn, I didn't even know this was about to happen. That's so unlucky. That's why I was going to say you have to be careful here. Like, you don't always want to press a button here. In fact, sometimes I will wait for my opponent to move instead. Not because, obviously this is as bad as it could have possibly been, but it's more the idea that, like I said, anything you do is a commitment. I think this was like okay. This is a better place to DP, like mid pressure if you were going to. Is on the it's under pressure, the first hit before the follow-up. And you can try to DP, but just be careful. Like, the only reason they got hit is because they tried to overextend. If they kind of did the sway again, you get caught. But we'll talk about it a little bit more. There's some stuff to keep in mind in general about, like, defending against Slayer. I see the vision, but that's a tough one. I would recommend, I will say... I'm pretty sure you can get one, right? Yeah. I would just safe jump if you're concerned about supers. Learning to safe jump is a pretty fundamental skill as Axel, and I didn't really mention it because it doesn't matter against Slayer as much as other people, so to me it feels corny. Let me like set my hitbox or change my hitbox into a stick as I talk about it. Because I just realized I can't do Axel or Slayer inputs on hitbox. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, I didn't see it much, and like that's totally fine because BDC is gonna have an easy time getting around doing an actual safe jump anyway. But it's more about that specific situation. Like it's a tool that you should be comfortable doing no matter what. I want to say, I mean, Lazy's here. Do you get a safe jump on Rensen versus everybody? Yeah, right? Is my guess. I don't think I've ever seen Axel not get the safe jump unless he's really, really far out. Then maybe it's kind of dicey because of the wake up timing. But if you're pretty close, can you not always just jump S if you wanted to, or more likely like you could do something safer. But yeah, it's one of those minor things where it's I only mention it because it's a really nice tool to have, is the way I would put it. Kind of no matter what. And like you might already be doing it, so like if you do, don't sweat it. Because like I said, I wouldn't expect people to do their safe jumps in the Slayer matchup anyway. But I noticed it at the end because if you did counter, it was probably because you were worried about super. So in my head, I was like, yeah, you could have just safe jumped. At least if you safe jump and they do the super, they have to like backdash cancel it in order for it to maybe have a chance of hitting you. You like it against Slayer because you don't know you need to whiff a ground normal. 2D can still fail. Yeah, I think safe jumps are nice if you're not worried about BDC bite, right, Lazy? Like, I think on average, if the Slayer is just jumping out of your safe jump or maybe doing like P Mappa and you're blocking it or something, that's like not the worst. The only reason I warn against it is because a good Slayer player will turn your safe jump into their command grab, which is insane. Like that situation blows. So I usually am like careful on telling people like, yeah, bro, just safe jump him. What's he gonna do about it? Hey, thanks for the follow. You can just do normal, jump forward, jump S2. Just plays around bite. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Normal jump forward, jump S seems like it would be pretty alright too, unless they start like doing wake up blitz, honestly. It just seems like one of those things where as long as you're not immediately 6P'able in the air, like even if they get out of what you're doing, you will probably not get punished. And I know this because like Biken has similar situations. One of the things I'll do with Biken is like 6K, safe jump, and then do her 6K because it has throw invincibility, which will save her from like that situation. And even if they jump out or do whatever, I don't care because the button I do will be safe anyway. Leaning on 3P Oki has rotted your safe jumps. You gotta fix that. 3P Oki is solid. It's definitely like a footsies type of Okizeme where it's like, hey, like, how good are you actually at getting out of axle pressure? And how desperate are you to DP immediately on wake up? / backdash. Right. But yeah, we'll talk about it. There were like a couple things I noticed. I know for sure. We'll talk about it first because it's the thing you actually want advice on. But I think fighting Slayer out of where the hell's that guy? Fighting Slayer out of the corner to me is a game of patience and doing your best like as you can to react to certain like really strong things. Right? That's the thing that's hard about Slayers. I wish I could just tell people, yeah, just block Slayer a bunch. But that's not a good suggestion, so I can't. But I'll highlight like specific points in his offense. Like I said, one of the things for sure I noticed that it might have been just that set and maybe it doesn't normally happen, but when you block this, technically it's supposed to be your turn as anybody, not just like Axel. He's at disadvantage on block and on hit. So don't feel pressured to bend 10 after this because generally it does not play into the situation. A lot of the times they're going to do this to avoid whatever you're pressing anyway because they want something like this to happen. They want you to press a button and like whiff like this. And I want to say Axel, is Axel 2K like decent at stopping like sway back in? It seems pretty good. Because Biken does the same thing. He's got a pretty good thing to stop him from, like, coming back in. Like, if you press it a little later like this. Right? But I'm not going to talk too much about it. Basically, if you block this move, don't tell yourself to DP. Tell yourself to try to fight back and then gauge what the Slayer player is doing. Usually, immediate button press is pretty safe if they, like, sway back like this. You shouldn't get punished for it, usually, unless they commit to something really big. Even this is generally not fast enough to actually punish things. You'll still have to block, but the idea is that you would have checked him, let's say, like, pressing a button because Slayer is minus here. So, yeah, let me say, oh my god. Wait, is 2K not 5 frames? Or 6 frames? How fast is this button? Is this 7 frames? Lazy, is this 7 frames? 2K7? Oh, that sucks. I thought this shit was 6. Oh, that's tough. I mean, it's not the biggest deal, but my point is, if let's say they were overextending, you could press a button here, and you should win. Like, you should win. I mean, I'm gonna be that guy and say I also have a 7 frame 2K, but it was more, I just thought it was 6. I thought his 5K and his 6K, or his 2K were just 6 frames. But yeah, see how I'm winning here? Slayer's fastest button he can press here is close slash, and I'm winning here. Right, because he's minus. So you don't have to DP. Think about the fact that they're probably going to not block. They're probably not going to press a button. They're going to move out of the way anyway. So some things like retreating here is not like the worst idea, especially when you have something like this as Axel. It's not like the worst idea. But I think usually pressing like a delayed 2K there or an immediate 5K is pretty good. That situation comes up a lot versus Slayer, by the way. That's why I'm like, you really got to be ready for situations where it hits you, and you still have to do stuff after. Let me see. I think you trade, I'm pretty sure. If he close slashes and you get hit, yeah, you trade. So it's up to you if you want this. This is why I was saying, like, if you want, you can bend in there, and it's not, like, the worst idea. But you can also, I think maybe you can even just 6B here and win. Nope. You would have to trade, or not get hit. You can also backdash if he's gonna do this. Delayed fuzzy jump's good. Delayed fuzzy jump's pretty alright. I think delayed fuzzy jump is really tricky. Lazy, only because I feel like this gets better the better you are at blocking Slayer, if that makes sense. Like, I agree, but I actually don't tell that many people to do this at the beginning, because you always get jailed back into the far slash, and you have to know what you're looking for there. And I think it just scares people more when they do that, because if I don't give people solutions that are immediate, I feel like it's kind of dicey. That's why I'm like, nah, like, if you want DP or blitz maybe, or whatever, but pay attention to if it hit you or it didn't. A blocked Mappa, you can at least try to interact with him. Don't feel like you need a DP. If it hits you, you can maybe DP, but again, you kind of don't need to feel pressured. The other thing I was going to say is more like, once you're sort of cornered into this positioning, you got to wait for Slayer to do some stuff a lot of the times. Because this spacing is pretty tricky for a lot of characters, right? I think the only thing you have that hits here is like maybe far slash. Nope. Right, so this spacing for a lot of characters is really awkward versus Slayer, and I think of it as one of two things, right? And Slayer will usually end up here if you block him out a lot, right? It's either one of two things, right? If Slayer is going is doing block strings forever versus you, and it never feels like he's ending up this far, it's probably because you're letting this happen too much. If they do like this into like the sway that actually puts them like right on top of you, which is the K sway, then they'll just keep you there forever. Because then they'll press this, and then after that they'll press this again because that's a Gatling, right? So like you can get stuck there for a long time. And if they're swaying a lot, I think the simplest advice I usually give people is identify what button they're pressing right before, and just you can just commit to like super jumping forward and air dashing out of the corner. Holy moly, Axel air dash is bad. It still is going to accomplish the same idea, but holy shit, I did not realize Axel backwards air dash is really bad. It'll work, don't worry, because you're doing your forward dash here, so it'll look like this, and you'll actually get out, but I never noticed that. Holy moly. But does that make sense? In other words, yeah, it's definitely the shortest in the game. That like jump scared me. So like, let's say this person is always standing at this distance Slayer pushes themselves out a lot at. If you can go, oh, they always do the sway here, you can sort of do something that looks like this, and you'll get out of the corner, which means that now at the very least, anytime he's starting to push himself out, when you run away, it starts to add up more, right? Instead. And that will kind of like get them to focus on like, hey, I need to call that out, because they can't sway and catch you jumping. Just like if you just commit to jumping, they won't catch you. If all you want to do is escape. That's, to me, that in my head, I think of that as like the downside to Dandy Step in general. If I had to pick a downside for sure, besides like, oh, I mean, if something's super active, you get hit, or like the things Slayers usually complain about, I think it's the fact that you get out. If you commit to jumping the moment he Dandy Steps and he doesn't lock in the fastest follow-up, which is usually P Dandy Step Pile Bunker to catch you, a lot of the times you'll get the jump and you'll get out. So focusing on the escape is good, and if it seems like they start to wait for you, like you're doing this and they're waiting for it because they're like, oh, this guy always runs away, then you might feel more confident in representing things like this. Again, the tricky part is Axel's just looking to build space anyway, so it's going to be hard to build like all that space, but once you're like in this situation, you can still do things like run up, oh my god, I forgot I can't do run up far slash, that's really funny. Run up 5k would be what you'd probably do instead, right? But does that make sense? The idea is honestly jumping out of that pressure of like repeated sways is enough to get Slayers to oftentimes not always sway. Wait a little bit more, and it gives you, in theory, like more opportunities to try to fight out of the corner without him always just pressing buttons or swaying into you and trading in his favor. But I usually do say, like, you can chill versus Slayer. It's a lot about understanding some of the straightforward counters to his options, right? A lot of Slayer stuff is button, 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 button. So what if you wait and you get bite looped? You shouldn't ever really get bite looped, because you should be able to mash out before, like, he can get another bite. Bite loops are one of those things where it's like he wants you to freak out, if that makes sense. You cannot. I am sorry. You're going to have to grind that. Physical nerve issue? Fuck, that's tough. I mean, if you think that they're gonna command grab you, it's pretty... I'm trying to think. It's pretty unlikely Slayer would do it from here. Any situation he's gonna command grab you in, you could probably still just jump, if that makes sense. Like, this shouldn't work much anyway. Like, I don't think any Slayer player would really do this in this distance, for like a lot of reasons, if that makes sense. Like, bite will be a problem for you, no matter what, if you can't mash out. But honestly, you're more worried about bite in situations like this. You're not really worried about them about, like, the pushback. Alright. And I was gonna say, if you're in a situation like this and they bite loop, delayed up back is, like, not too bad. Like, a delayed jump is, like, not the worst. Or Benton is fine. Or throw them out of it. Forward dash bite is not, like, actually, like, throw invincible when they do this. See? So if he disappears, and you think he's disappearing because he wants to bite you, you can throw him out of it. Or, like, solutions that you can consider to help you deal with it, right? And you can wait for him to, like, disappear and try to throw it. Right, like this. Because if you're telling yourself, well, he always disappears and does it there, then you can throw, right? It's only scary to me in the sense that when Slayer does this animation looks the same to me as, wait for it, this animation. They're technically not the same, but when he disappears, you can't tell whether it's the forward or the back version a lot of the times, right? They look essentially identical. Like, look at this shit. They basically are identical, like, right? So I do think the downside is when he's here, you can't tell if he's doing this instead. But if you're overly worried about bite, you can throw it. The only time you can't throw it is when they do it, like, in place as a reversal, right? Like the ones that they do, like this. Oh my god, the one time I hit it, I don't get it. There you go. Right, so, like, see? See how that's, like, going through my button? Like this? And I can't, like, throw it either because of the invincibility. I have to, like, wait to do it. This is the only situation. When they move forward and bite you, that you can, like, you can mash on it, you can throw it. Like, that shit's not real. That shit's as fake as, like, other stuff. And you can wait and throw it if that's, like, if you tell yourself, like, oh, well, what if I wait? You can wait and throw it, and it's not, like, the worst thing ever. But I would say those. If bite is your concern, they don't really bite at this distance. They usually bite off of far slash if they're going to pick a spot because far slash is really plus. So they bank on you being scared. That's like a really common spot that Slayers will bite. Most common spot Slayers will probably bite you is off of far slash. It's really common. Sometimes off of 2K they like to do it, but it's not as plus as like far slash. So they don't really do it as much. Off of this option, off of Soy into like the follow-up, if they have good execution, they will do bites after punches like this, or after the sways on under pressure like that. Those are the most common spots that you will see Slayers most likely use the command grab. And I think understanding where they use the command grab, it helps in terms of preparing yourself, like, in the mental stack. Like, oh, okay, like, I just block far slash, like, he might command grab. But yeah, I think this spacing is kind of inevitable, but you do want to wait Slayer out. Because of the fact that he's really plus. Like, the last thing I'll say, because I'm, like, taking up a lot of time at this point, is... Does that make sense? A lot of Slayer's situations here are really good for him. He's really plus. Like, I want to say far slash is like plus 6 or 7 or something like that. And he's right on top of you still. Right? So usually when he's right here, it's really stressful. Even this button on regular block, the overhead is plus on block. So learning to block him for the sake of pushing him out so he has to make a decision is why it's important. And like if they introduce bite, then just be ready for it, right? But you need to do it because plus, like, so if I press this, I'm plus, right? If I do the extension, I'm still plus. If I press this button, which I think hits if you do it like this, maybe? Let me see, can I do it like this? Still plus. Like, not a lot, but I'm still plus. That means if we both hit a button right now, I should win if I hit you, right? Like a button like this will win if we both press a button at the same time, right? So you really want to wait him out until he's a little farther, like over here, and then he presses this button or this button, and it's like, okay, now when he gets to this button, he has to start making decisions. Because he's either going to jump at you, and if he jumps at you, you have like Axel 2S sometimes if you have good reactions. You can blitz it is a universal option I usually recommend to people if they don't think their reactions are too great. You can air throw it if you have really, really like solid reactions, right? But he's either going to air dash at you, and that's got its own solution. Technically, you could like block the hit, IB it, and then bent in afterwards is like pretty solid too. Like at this button. Because oftentimes, like, you can IB it and then Benton if they don't press it really low. And then if they don't do that, they're going to do something like this instead, right? Remember how I said, like, they're usually going to end up on this normal? It's because as you block them out and they do something that looks like this, button, 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 button. Oh, I pressed the wrong one. I'm supposed to press 5K. They press 5K there, and then they press this button. Usually. And now they don't have any Gatlings, right? Is how it works. So a lot of like learning to phase out level 1 Slayer offense is waiting for stuff like this, knowing it's special cancelable, and then a block string might look like this. Let me be greedy on purpose. All right, so let's say like this happens. Worth noting, so a lot of these are links. If I press a button, let's say like I instant block on accident on the second hit, and I'm like, I'm going to press a button. That's a frame trap. I can't do that. Say I want to press it here. That's a frame trap. I can't do that. Right? Like, if you're just mashing versus Axel, or not Axel versus Slayer, is pretty dicey. He's not a good character to just mash versus. But if I say waited, and I was like, they always do this wait here, then I could try to jump out, right? And I would just do like button, 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 block. I'm going to just super jump out, bro. Neutral super jump, let me get out. And it doesn't matter what Slayer is really locking in there most of the time, unless they do the fastest follow-up. Right? If he does this, a lot of the times, like, it has a chance at catching you. If you're not careful, right? But it's really scary because Slayer resets a lot if you're not ready for him, right? Just be ready for him to reset and do things like this, right? Let's say he does like this to me. And he redashes on me like that. Is it fast enough there? That's dicey. You can try it. I mean, I'll try it for the sake of just showing it real quick. But that's kind of dicey. I don't know if I would trust that option. Mostly because of an extended hurt box. Not even necessarily in terms of like the escape. Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. You should probably just super jump and get out. Mostly because you are a lot more disadvantageous there than Slayer. When you do this. And you're probably never gonna hit him a lot of the times, the way that this plays out. You would maybe hit like punch dandy, but they're not usually doing punch dandy there a lot of the time. Oh, whoops. I'm like not even doing the right thing. Yeah, see, so like extended hurt box is kind of the reason I don't like it. Slayer to me is not about always fighting out of the corner or making things better for myself and making it my turn. A lot of the times I just try to do this. Because now when he does his pressure and stuff, like the difference is I was saying like, oh yeah, you should do super jump and get out. But if you're in the middle of the screen, the same logic applies. If he presses a button like 6H, you can oftentimes like jump and then back away because now you actually have room to retreat into, right? That's why getting out of the corner is such a big deal. Because you're still going to end up blocking more likely than not, but you actually are rewarded for blocking now. By the fact that like the more you block, like the more you'll just get out in the middle of the screen. But in the corner, every time you block things and don't just immediately escape, you're the one that still has to commit more than the other guy. Because if someone presses something and like, oh, I missed my button, I actually get to backdash and like make you miss your whiff punish, right? Because I have room to retreat into when I hold the corner, right? That's like the reason. And then if the Slayer really just waits forever, then yeah, like 2H out of the corner. You did your job. Like, if they're waiting for you to, like, jump out of shit or they start doing things like this, now the Slayer player is actually, like, paying attention to what you do, right? So, in other words, like, if you do this and you're like, I'm gonna jump, because that sometimes catches the jump if you're like a little late. Like let's say I do this and I'm like a little late on it, it catches the jump, right? And then you're back in square one. But Slayer gets that because he waited for you, right? Like there are a lot of things I could have did there. I could have just waited myself and done this, right? I could have pressed the button, right? Oh my god, wrong button. I gotta press the standing button. Oh my god, too early. Damn, it's really delayed, isn't it? Right? I can press the button. And I'll, like, contest it. Because at that point, Slayer is only trying to catch my jump. Does that make sense? The tricky part about defending anybody is making them care about your actions. Once they care, their offense has to change. That's usually the nature of, like, most fighting games. But I definitely noticed those mostly. I was also going to say when, like, I won't talk about it like crazy, but, Lurking Slayer player, you both love his offense. How his offense boils down to stuff like this because it's so interactive, but also sucks sometimes because of how much you can wait out and force interactions that the defender can win. If you stick around, I'm going to reset my stream so that I can have, the VOD to upload. Which, by the way, if you do want to ever go back, like, let's say you're like, oh, I don't remember what Brett said in VOD review. These are on YouTube. The YouTube is just at Bike and Player, I want to say. So, like, I just upload the VOD if you ever need to go back to this. But yeah, does that make sense? Does that hopefully, like, clarify some of the mysteries of Slayer? He still has a lot of things like this. But usually if Slayer is dashing in the middle of his pressure on you, like, button into, like, raw dash, it technically means you could have pressed the button, or more likely than not, you could have thrown him out of that. Right? That's, like, the way he sneaks in resets. And if he starts doing those resets on you, don't be too afraid to do, like, button in place or throw on the redashes. It'll give you at least some better interaction. But it is an uphill battle if you're playing just interactions as Axel, in terms of the fact that Slayer gets such good reward. Wait, can you get this off far slash? No, right? Yeah, just close slash. Thank you. You don't know where and how to best squirm. Knowing to target 6H and wake up backdash more is great. Yeah. Yeah, 6H is a really big one. Pay attention to 6H, Nasha, and pay attention to once you're better at paying attention to 6H, pay attention to Slayers dashing in the middle of the pressure instead. Like, they're gonna notice you waiting more, and they're gonna try to do things like this more. Right? Like, try to pay a little bit more attention to when they start doing that, and then that'll give you an idea on, like, this is where you're sneaking in the turn. That's not where you're supposed to, like, do the pressure, you know? Things like, it's like if you got to do this to somebody. Right? Like, that's you sneaking a turn. You shouldn't be able to do Axel close slash into like, redash, right? And this is, like, a bad example, because I don't really know if this is a thing, but you get the point, right? Like, sudden, like, just a little bit of respect means that people can start fishing for things like this. And Slayer's version of that is doing things like this. Or doing things like this. Is sneaking in, like, extra opportunity. Things that you could have interacted with, but okay. I'll cut it here for the sake of time. I'm gonna stream a little bit longer because I kind of want to play. Hey, what's up, Kyrie? But I'm gonna cut the VOD here. Like, in other words, like, I'm gonna restart my stream just so I don't have to edit the VOD. But I'll be right back. And then if you want to talk about the Slayer stuff, we'll talk about the Slayer stuff. But yeah. I didn't really talk about it, but bi-weekly VOD review is technically starting up again. The next one should be. Thanks for the review. Yeah, no mention it. Thanks for coming by. I hope some of the stuff sticks. The next one should be in 2 weeks. I think it's like the weekend of my birthday or something like that. Should I do VOD review on my birthday? That'd be pretty funny. We should do VOD review on my birthday. I might do the next one in 2 weeks and do on the 18th on my birthday, which would be kind of funny. Or I might do it the day before. I don't know. But if you want to keep an eye out for them, they're usually, I post the forum on bluesky. Yeah, you're the only review today, which is why we got to take more time. Usually these are a lot shorter in 35 minutes. But because you were the only one, I was like, we could do it till, like, about an hour. I try to not talk forever anymore, because it's, like, a bad habit. Doing my own VOD review for my birthday would be funny. I don't even do VOD review anymore. I've been really lazy. But anyways, you can check at Bike and Player on bluesky. I post the forum usually on the Monday of that week, like, whenever it is. So the next one should be in, like, 2 weeks. It'll be posted